A colleague once complained to me about a certain airline that on each flight he got the same sandwich. I asked him, "Are you sure it was the same sandwich?" Since my colleague is a logician, we both laughed out loud at the ambiguity. Of course, my colleague wasn't served one and the same sandwich time and again, but rather the same kind of sandwich. Welcome to week 2, in which I invite you to savor one of the oldest and the most famous and infamous metaphysical problems in the history of ideas, the problem of universals. After watching these clips, you will be able to appreciate the arguments for and against the idea that different objects can share literally one and the same property. Let us first define the problem. Consider the various kinds of properties that the ingredients in a shopping bag have, like their color, taste, texture, weight. Some seem to share the same property. Take, for instance, 2 sugar snaps that are both green. They do not share their color in the same way as, for instance, one of the sugar snaps and a Thai aubergine. These are both called green, but there are considerable differences between their shades of green. Our 2 sugar snaps, by contrast, have the very same shade of green. But now think of this shade of green. Aren't there countlessly many objects in the world, not only sugar snaps, but also many other kinds of objects, that have exactly the same color? Now we need to distinguish between a semantic problem of universals and a metaphysical problem of universals. The semantic problem of universals assumes the referential theory of meaning, the view that the meaning of a word is its referent, the entity referred to by the word. In the case of proper names, there is no problem whatsoever. The word Stefan refers to the particular man behind the camera. But what about a general term like man that doesn't refer to a particular man but applies generally to all men? Some philosophers think that since a general term does not refer to a particular entity like Stefan, it must refer to a universal, like manhood. If you disagree, you probably disagree with the referential theory of meaning. Let us now forget about these semantic worries and focus on the world. We can safely assume that the world contains many particular entities, like particular houses, roses, and sunsets. Let's bypass the difference between objects like houses and roses on the one hand, and events or processes like sunsets on the other hand. And let's call all such entities particulars. Now note that particulars are individual spatio-temporal entities that can only be or occur in one place at the same time. Now here is the metaphysical problem of universals, aptly called the problem of the one over the many. At face value, the world not only contains particulars. There seem to be entities in the world that can be or occur in more than one place at the same time. Adopting and adapting the famous and provocative formulation of Quine, red houses, red roses, and red sunsets appear to share a property, a color property, a shade of red or redness, being present or occurring in many particulars and, as a result, in many places at the same time. It's one and the same property, being a shade of red, over many particulars. Something similar could apply to relations. Take, for instance, the relation of having twice the mass of. It is repeated in many pairs of objects in the world. This pear has twice the mass of that banana. This pineapple has twice the mass of that lemon. It seems one and the same relation over many pairs of objects. And so it looks like that unlike particulars, properties and relations can be present in many particulars at the same time. In contrast to particulars, properties and relations have the property of being repeatable. And so arguably, they constitute another kind of entity altogether. They are not particulars, but rather universals, entities that are repeated and completely present in many instances. Now that you have already a taste of, and perhaps even a taste for, the problem of the one over the many, you will deepen your understanding of it significantly by thinking through and by making an assessment of the powers and limits of a number of solutions to the problem. In the rest of this week, we will consider 5 solutions to the problem of the one over the many. In the next clip, we'll discuss 2 ancient kinds of realism about universals. Both Plato and Aristotle argue that there really are such things as universals, independent of minds. Nevertheless, there are considerable, telling and historically influential differences between teacher Plato and pupil Aristotle as to how they conceive of universals. Subsequently, we'll consider 3 kinds of nominalism, the view that there are no such things as universals. The problem of the one over the many can be solved without postulating universals. There is no need to appeal to universals to explain properties and relations. Rather, they can be reductively explained in terms of sets or resemblances or tropes. So whereas a realist conceives of a property as one and the same universal over many particulars, a nominalist reduces properties to sets of particulars, resemblances between particulars, or abstract particulars.